please mail them to us and we will forward them to Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Thank you, Finance Minister, for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you, Navika, as well, for taking forward that conversation. All right, let's get a move on from that inspiring session as we move to 4 bureaucrats working tirelessly to help India rise. It would be a disservice to call them mandarins because they are change agents, tasked with solving some of India's biggest problems, from corporate affairs to divestment to aviation and even housing.
You know, they're responsible for the plumbing that keeps the economy going, if I can call it that. Please put your hands together for Pradeep Kharola, Secretary, Ministry of Aviation, T.K. Pandey, Secretary, Deepam, and Durga Shankar Mishra, Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. The discussion will be moderated by ET Now's Ruchi Bhatia. Ruchi, over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We are here to talk about the $5 trillion economy, and who better really than the men who are shaping up the policies behind, for the Modi government. In conversation, of course, with Secretary Aviation, Mr. Pradeep Kharola, Secretary Housing, Mr. Durga Shankar Mishra, and joining us all the way from the road shows in UK is Secretary Deepam, Mr. Kanta Pandey, who's also going to be speaking with us today. Sir, thanks for taking your time out and speaking with us. Let me first begin by asking you about, we're talking about aspiration to action, the agenda for growth. The housing sector really is a big growth multiplier. In the last 1 year, we've seen several steps being taken, including RERA, now rights being given to the home buyers as well. We understand there's an ordinance that's underway. At a time when the economy is struggling with a mere 4.5%, what is the action in your view that is required to not just pump prime growth in the real estate sector, but also construction sector, infrastructure sector, sir?
Thank you, Ruchi. In fact, cities are the engines of economic growth. That's a very important saying. I mean, if the cities perform, the economy itself boosts automatically. There have been a huge movement in the urban area right from 2014 onwards. So you started with the housing and the real estate. Let me start with that. But there are many other things, many other actions which has been taken and are going to be taken, which is going to boost your aspiration to the action, the real journey from the $3 trillion economy to the $5 trillion economy, and ultimately taking it to the $10 trillion economy. So let me start with housing. You see, when every person has a dream of owning his own house, but in a study carried out by the then Planning Commission in 2011-12, that showed that there was a gap of nearly 1.78 crores, that is 17.8 million houses. Either they were inadequate or they were in dilapidated conditions, they were in bad conditions. So in 2015, Honorable Prime Minister launched the scheme Housing for All Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. And there the dream is to get every Indian a house of his own. And when you say house, it is not merely a 4 walls, but a house with drinking water, with a gas connection, with the toilet facilities, with all other amenities which will allow the individuals to integrate with the economy and get his best potentials devoted to the economic growth. This scheme was launched in June 2015, and then we started assessing the demand from different states. You know that in the federal system, it is the states who are responsible for the urban development, the total aggregated demand across the country is nearly 1.1 crore. And you'll be happy to know that so far, I have sanctioned 96.5 lakhs houses. And on 27th of this month, when monthly I meet for chairing the CSMC, the committee under my chairmanship, I am confident we are going to cross the figure of 1 crore on 27th of December this month. It is not only the sanction. Out of 96.5 lakh sanctions, we have already grounded nearly 57 lakhs houses. And more than 29 lakhs houses have been completed and delivered. I move around across the country and see the kind of happiness to the families which have entered into their new house, coming from different segments of the society, young professionals, middle-aged people who have been aspiring for a house, but they couldn't afford that. And this is a tremendous change in their living standards. And this has been possible, this journey on 27th of December when I saying we are going to cross 1 crore figure, this journey was possible not only with the programmatic, but various policy measures. To start with, like a RERA, it's a completely transformative legislation where you can say pre-RERA era and the post-RERA era, where there is a more confidence, more transparency, more accountability, whether it is the buyer or whether it is the seller, the developer or even the banker, everybody is much more confident about the real estate sector, what they promise and what they deliver.
Right.
There are a lot of fiscal and financial measures, tax exemptions, whether it is in the GST, whether it is in income tax, the whole lot of things which have been done, bringing on the automatic route of the FDI. Yeah.
So, we will be talking about each of those points. Let me take it across to Mr. Kharola as well. Sir, the aviation sector contributes to $72 billion in terms of GDP. We are the 9th largest civil aviation market and also boasts about the fastest growing market with respect to domestic travel as well. Where do the opportunities really lie in the aviation sector? We are seeing, the fact that you're pushing the pedal on airport privatization. We hear that there are 6 more airports that will be privatized. The Modi government is really talking about 100 lakh crore worth of investment in terms of infrastructure. Where do we see the aviation sector really contributing to this 100 lakh crore pie?
I think, you have partly answered the question itself. Now, if we have to reach the 5 trillion mark, some sectors will have to grow in double digits. If we really look back and see, aviation is the sector which has established and it has proved that it has the potential to grow in double digits. If you look at the aviation growth in the last 4 to 5 years, aviation in India has grown at a cumulative rate of 16%. Now, that's where the answer to growth lies. And if we really look at this year, what happened was, the aviation sector has proved its resilience. Now, if you really see that, because of certain problems, one of the airlines had to suspend operations.
Right.
Almost 20% of our capacity disappeared. In spite of that, when we look back and see the number of aircraft flying before that airline stopped operations and number of aircraft flying now, there is almost a growth of 5 to 6%, which means the industry has not only wiped out the gap, the vacuum created, but it has also added on to capacity. And if we really go into numbers, initially we had aviation sector growing at 3 to 4% in the initial months of this year.
Right.
Come November, the growth has again hit 11%. Now, this establishes that the aviation industry has become not only highly growth-oriented, but also has established its resilience. So when we talk of aviation, it has got various components. The aviation ecosystem has various parts. Let's look at the airports. Now, we have about 100 airports which are operational today, and we have no doubt that in the next 5 years, the number of operational airports would double. Now, how is this going to happen? That's going to be a multi-pronged approach. The most important being inviting the private sector to invite in the airport projects. And the response of private sector has been extremely good. In the first phase, we did bid out 6 airport projects on the PPP mode, and the response was overwhelming. Let's look at the response of the new Greenfield Airport at Jewar. There itself, the response has been so competitive that even we are also surprised by the way the response we are getting. Let's look at airlines. Today we have about 600 plus aircraft flying. In the next 5 years, the number would double. So we in government, we are trying to make policy interventions to create a congenial atmosphere so that this doubling of numbers of airplanes does take place.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to, I'll just take a moment here and I will be asking you about the latest report that CAPA has also put out where they're saying that forget the times that we thought that after jet would go down, we'll be moving into profits, we perhaps moving into losses. But I'll just take that question in a moment. Let me also take it across to Secretary Deepa, Mr. Tuhin Kanta Pante, who's joining us live at the moment from one of his road shows that he's conducting for BPCL Shipping Corp and Concor. Mr. Pandey, thanks for joining in. You're indeed a busy man who's tasked with an equally important job, not just of pump priming the government's revenues at a time like this, but also driving the entire privatization process for the Modi government. Help us understand what has driven the big change in the approach.
Yes, I think the strategic disinvestment policy has been there for quite some time, but this time around, the focus of the government is to really reap economic potential of which the disinvestment can bring about, and the privatization, and also to use the new technology, management and resources for the economic growth of the country is a key factor. And for that, the profit making or the loss making is not really among the relevant criteria to decide that.
Right. Mr. Pandey, I also must ask you, time is ticking. Everybody is talking about March 2020 deadline in terms of disinvestment. What's going to be your end goal? Will it be value maximization? Will it be getting a clean deal? Because this is the first time we are doing this process after a large gap. Or will it perhaps be getting the deal done because getting the money to close in the fiscal gap will be imperative?
The disinvestment target is important, but we should not be looking at the closing of the deals merely based on the March 31st deadline. It's actually a pipeline, and the process has to move fast, but it has to move in a very in an established way. There is processes which are well set, and those have to be gone through. There is a multi-layered decision making. There is also an issue of due diligence by the investors and market conditions. Market value has to be maximized for the public assets that we are doing. All these considerations are important along with the disinvestment target. And disinvestment is not merely dependent on a particular method of disinvestment. We have a bouquet of methods under disinvestment. We have a minority stake sale where we have OFS, we have got ETFs, where we have got listing of enterprises. So all of these things have to be considered for achieving the target. So for the strategic disinvestment is concerned, of course we want to move fast, but at the same time we would see to it that we maximize the value.
All right. Let me take that point. Since we're talking about funds, I must ask you, Mr. Mishra, that the realty sector, you've said that a lot has been done from the government's end, but we're also seeing that there was a lot of pain in the real estate sector, and perhaps that was the reason that the government thought that there's a need of a stressed fund for the real estate sector. What has been the impact of the stressed fund? And going forward, how will you ensure that, because a large part of the real estate sector is still out of the ambit of those that stressed asset fund. So how will you ensure that the pain is reduced for the realty sector?
See, there have been series of measures, and the last one which you mentioned is the alternate investment fund of 25,000 crore, which was announced by the Honorable Finance Minister, and now it is taking up a shape where those projects which are RERA registered and they are stressed for some last mile investment, the project can go up and then it can fulfill the demand for the consumers whose projects have been held up for a long time. I mean, once this small mile funds are there, then even those who are the consumers, their confidence level will go up and they will start investing into the project and these projects will get completed. So this is going to cover a large number of them. Definitely, I mean, those which are the RERA registered projects, RERA registered projects, and they are positive, net worth positive. Apart from this, there have been measures like the reduction in the GST. There is a measures related to, giving some benefit to the consumers. Whether it is the, government consumers, their total capacity, it was increased from 7.5 lakhs to 25 lakhs. For the private, there is a huge program of CLSS, Credit Linked Subsidy Scheme. And for the first time, Credit Linked Subsidy Scheme, now we have crossed the figure of 8 lakhs.
So what about the projects which are not RERA approved? Because that is where the real pain really exists. Is the government perhaps looking at a one-time restructuring scheme for the real estate companies that could perhaps give them a breather of sorts?
Oh, these things are definitely under consideration of the Finance Ministry, but I can't give any commitment right away. There have been such demands from the real estate sector, and they have been discussed at different tables, like this risk fund also. I mean, this has come up after a lot of discussion. You understand, there is a different levels of discussions, and then once you come to considering multifarious impacts of such decisions, the decisions are taken. So it's still under consideration. Yeah.
Can we expect something in the upcoming budget? Because everybody is, of course, looking out for the policy points from that front.
Well, I can't say so. This is for the Honorable Finance Minister to consider and announce, and not me.
Okay, let me take it across to you, Mr. Kharola. Since we're talking about funds, you were talking about how there is a lot of potential in the Indian aviation market, but CAPA, in one of their reports that was put out last week, they've said that forget getting into profits. After the demise of Jet Airways, the aviation sector should be bracing for losses. We've also seen that after, it's a cycle of sorts that after every 3 or 4 years, we see airline sector going bust, 1 or 2 airlines really falling off the cliff. Is market access what India offers enough, or is there more that needs to be done from the government's end? Because if it's a buzzing sector, if it's a sunrise sector, then there should be more policy support.
I think that's a very relevant question. Now, if someone asks me, what has been the biggest achievement of aviation in the last 1 decade? I would simply say accessibility. Means people today, a common man can think of flying. To give an example, means I joined my service about 35 years back. At that time, a ticket from Bangalore to Delhi would consume 3 months of my salary. And today, it has become so affordable that we say that Aam Aadmi can fly. So that has been the biggest achievement. But then yes, the point you are making is that viability of airlines is an issue. And we are trying to address this. There are several ways which this can be addressed. One is on the cost side. On the cost side, we are working on the lease financing. If you really know, a majority of aircraft which the airlines operate are lease financed. And unfortunately, all these aircraft are leased financed from overseas, offshore. Now, if this is brought to India, the costs come down. And we are working on that. Some policy reforms, some tax reforms, some regulatory reforms are being carried out so that lease finance would start in India. Second is, a major component of cost is the maintenance, repairs, and overhaul. Once again, 90% in terms of value of the maintenance and repair and overhaul goes abroad. Just imagine a plane over here it works in India, and for repair it flies to Europe. It's becomes extremely expensive. So what we are doing is, once again, policy interventions so that India itself becomes an MRO hub. Now, apart from that, there are things like acceding to Cape Town Convention. Now, that's also we are working on, and that would further bring down the lease costs.
Is there an MRO policy that is underway?
Well, it is a part of the National Civil Aviation Policy, which says that we build an environment where MROs become extremely vibrant and sustainable, and bring down the cost of operation for the airlines. So these are the measures we are taking to see to it. And there are also some tax reforms on the annual. We are approaching the various state governments and pleading with them that please reduce the tax on ATF. And in some states, it's pretty high. And some states have really responded, and they have dropped the tax to as low as 1%. So things are happening, and we are working on reducing the cost of inputs to the airline sector.
Right. Let me also take it across to Secretary Deepam. Sir, you are holding very important deliberations right now with the investors. Just want to get a sense from you on the line on which the assurances are being given at this point of time.
Shows are important because we are able to learn about the investors' concerns as well as the interest right in the beginning, and it also gives an idea about what are the key factors in before we come out for the EOI. Of course, when we come out with the expression of interest, well, that is wide open to everyone in each one, and then of course the process of disinvestment begins. So roadshow is an essential element to actually make the process more professional.
Right. So we are talking about roadshows. Very recently, Mr. Kharola, the roadshows happened for Air India as well. As a part of what the government intends on doing, Air India is going to be a big piece of the pie in terms of reforms, because a lot of money and funds that is currently being used just to keep Air India afloat can be diverted to other sectors as well. What have been the lessons that we've learned from our previous effort of disinvesting Air India?
You're absolutely right when you say that strategic disinvestment of Air India is a part of the reforms process in the aviation sector. Well, we did make an attempt last year when Air India it was attempted that it should be disinvested. And at that time, the lessons learned, we learned a few lessons. We are trying to work on that, improve on this point of time. The major lessons were, if I can say, was number one, at that time, we said that only 76% of India would be disinvested, and 24% government would retain. Now, the feedback we got was that people are not very much interested with this. They want 100% disinvestment. So this time, the disinvestment, the strategic would be totally 100%. The second and more important reason was that Air India has accumulated huge amount of debt. Now, last time also, some amount of debt was retained with the sellable Air India, and some was parked in the special purpose vehicle. And there, once again, the bidders thought that the amount of debt which was retained with Air India was not making it sustainable. So we are once again working on that also, and we'll see to it that the debt being parked with Air India is such that any bidder would be able to make it sustainable. And if he feels that he can really invest and improve, and he will be able to run Air India profitably. So these are the two major changes we will be doing this time.
I'm going to put you in a spot. One of the big contentious issues, if we are looking to attract an investor from outside, is the substantial ownership and the effective control clause. Is India willing to give up on that?
Well, I think this we have discussed in various road shows and all. Substantial ownership and effective control is something not typical to India.
Right.
If we really see all the world over, we are governed by international agreements and international traffic rights and all. Each country says that if you want to operate from that country, substantial ownership shall vest with the nationals of that country.
So India will not give that up.
It is not. But then, and what it says is that foreigners can hold up to 49%, and Indian nationals should own 51%. And not only that, they should have substantial ownership and effective control over that. And in the road shows, none of the investors have expressed any problem about this, and they are happy about it. And in the last bid also, this was not a hurdle.
So here's hoping that the Air India disinvestment process is successful the second time over. Mr. Mishra, I have to ask you, and this is going to be my last question. You know, since we're talking about kickstarting growth, what needs to be done with respect to affordable housing will be very important. A whole host of steps have already been taken. Where from here, what will be the next, path that you will be laying out?
See, we held a global housing technology challenge in the month of March this year. And from there, we have selected some 54 technologies across the globe. Some from 25 countries they came. Now, out of that, through a challenge process, we have selected 6 of them. 6 states have come through the challenge process, and we are going to ground those lighthouse projects. And through that, how we can have more environment-friendly, very rapidly constructing, much lesser cost, and a better experience. So this new technology is another area through which, in a very fast manner, you can construct, and these technologies are going to be the Indian technologies. I would like to mention that out of some 59 lakhs houses which have been grounded under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, more than 15 lakhs of them are through the new technology, and the technology which are already available with us. We have a large number of technology, but these 6 technologies, and they are going to be like a laboratories where we would like the students, the teachers, the professors, those who are practitioners, the policy makers, they all to learn these technology, imbibe them as the Indian technologies. So this is, a technology is our new front. In fact, this year, 2019-20 was declared as a construction technology year by the Honorable Prime Minister, and there have been a lot of programs, lot of conversations across the country using the technology, whether using, different kinds of technology for construction, for material, for the processes, and even to address different kinds of vulnerability. For the first time, we have a vulnerability map of India, which is available on a, soft copy is available. And we launched a course where anybody from anywhere can learn 24/7 by paying a fees. Yeah.
All right, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this is a wrap on this, of course, session. So thanks for taking your time out. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that insightful session.